So in this video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create water texture using acrylic paint. You're going to start with a base layer of blue, and that's going to be a tint of your main blue. So all the splotches that you see on the left side, that is how I made my tint. That was my main color, and I just mixed it with a little bit of white. Once it's nice and dry, you're going to focus on the splotchy shapes. So in order for this to look like water texture, you need to make sure that you're avoiding drawing overly rounded, almost pebble-like shapes, because you're going to notice that the gaps between each of those shapes is a little bit uneven. And also, it's going to make it look kind of cartoony, which is not what we're going for. If you look at the shapes on the right side, they're very organic shapes and they fit like puzzle pieces. There's also a good variety of sizes. You don't want them all to be the same size. Now, I really want you to pay attention how they fit like a puzzle piece. It's almost like a short little river in between each of these, so that way it looks like the water that we're going for. And again, avoid doing overly round shapes. So I directly started painting my shapes onto my dried paint. However, if you're a little bit hesitant with drawing these organic shapes, making sure that they fit, making sure you have a good variety of size and all that good stuff, I recommend that you take a blue color pencil and you draw all the shapes on there first. That way you can get the spacing right, you can get the shapes drawn correctly, making sure they fit like a puzzle piece. And as you were watching me paint this, I want you to notice too that I don't have any super sharp edges, because if that's the case, it ends up looking more like shattered glass. And we're trying to go for more of a water technique, so you want to make sure that everything is very rounded with the shapes that you are creating. I also want you to notice that they are not touching and they have a good variety of size. Sometimes kids tend to paint them really small and it takes a long time to do the step. But again, you want to have a good variety of size for this particular step. Now, in order for us to paint white on top of this paint, we need to make sure that it's super duper dry. You can take a hair dryer, make sure you're kind of wiggling it around, get some circulation with the air, and to know that you're done, you can touch it or you can look to see if it's super shiny. So before we move on to actually painting the white, I want to point out some things. I have a good variety of shapes, and I'm not directly outlining the shapes we just made. And of course, I want to make sure I'm using the correct brush. Now, something that tends to happen when kids are painting is they're holding the brush horizontally, as you see there. You need to make sure that you coat the brush like you see in the video where I'm swirling it around to make sure that I'm loading the brush, I have a good amount of paint. And the way that you should be holding it to get a finer line is straight vertically. So it's as if the paintbrush is coming right towards you. And if you notice, my line is a lot thinner or more narrow. Now, when you press down, as you can see, huge difference. You're expanding the brush, which means you're spreading the paint out more, which is not what we want. You want to make sure that you are holding it, again, vertically, like it's coming towards you. And you do not need to press down when you are painting, unless you need to make a thicker line. But again, for our water texture, we are not needing thicker lines. So again, it's all about how you're holding the brush and how you're loading the brush with paint in order for this to look like water. Now, before you start painting all these white lines, you need to make sure that those blue organic shapes underneath are all super smooth and they fit like a puzzle piece, because once you start putting these white lines on top, it's a pain to try to go and fix that. So just make sure you do that before the white lines. Now, your shape should be all different sizes. They should not be going all in the same direction, and you're not outlining the shapes below. But the main thing that kids struggle with making water texture is they forget to round out any sharp edges. All they do is paint the lines and all the shapes and they think they're done. But it tends to look like shattered glass. So even though this is time lapse, you can see where I'm taking the time to go back and round out some of those edges, because that is what's going to make it look like water. So make sure you take time to round out all your edges, and once you have that, it should look like water.